So with the Resident Evil 4 remake right around the corner, I've been wanting to check out the last remake Capcom did with Resident Evil 3. Now I've said this plenty of times before, but the Resident Evil series has become one of my favorite game series over the past couple years. I've yet to play a Resident Evil game that I haven't enjoyed. I played and made a video on the Resident Evil 2 remake last year, which was incredible, one of my favorite games in the series. And then a little more recently, I played the original Resident Evil 4, which has surprisingly aged quite well. I've kind of been playing the games in the wrong order, but oh well. Anyways, the Resident Evil 3 remake came out only a little over a year after the 2 remake, and obviously the games share a lot of similarities in their gameplay, design, and of course with the RE engine, which continues to look incredible in each game it's used in. But of all the Resident Evil games I've played, this was the one I was the most apprehensive about heading into, since I've heard such mixed things about it. Now from what I understand, this remake had a lot of cut content from the original. Unfortunately, I haven't played the original, so I can't comment too well on that. I did have some issues with the game that doesn't relate to any of that, but generally I'd say I still really enjoyed the game. Again, the gameplay in the RE2 remake was so good, and since a lot of that is the same here, despite its flaws, I still had a really good time with it. I think the most obvious and glaring problem is just in its length. This is only a 4 to 6 hour game, and in comparison to the RE2 remake, which was around 20 hours total with Leon and Claire's campaigns, it almost makes it feel more like an expansion than an actual full game. I mean, it easily could be as well with all the mechanics and assets it borrows from the RE2 remake, and when you also consider this game full price was $60 at launch, despite Capcom themselves knowing the length of the game was not worth that price tag, a 5 to 6 hour game for $60 is pretty ridiculous, especially these days. So I imagine that also rubbed a lot of people the wrong way on release. Luckily this game is on sale quite often and the price has dropped a bit, and I got it at a good price, so I wasn't upset with that. But if you're interested in playing this game, I definitely recommend getting it on a sale. But let's start by talking about the game's mascot, if you would. I mean, his name is literally in the title of the original game, Nemesis. I mean, first of all, Nemesis looks incredible. He's absolutely terrifying. It makes Mr. X look like a baby in comparison. He's pretty relentless throughout the entirety of the game, and like most Resident Evil villains, just when you think you've finally put him down, he comes back again and again and again. He was also way harder to deal with than Mr. X. Not only is he much harder to stun, he has tons of different attacks, he can use weapons, and oh, did I mention he can sprint? Nemesis sprinting at me from around a corner was genuinely one of the biggest jump scares I've had while playing a horror game. I was also playing this on hardcore, so he killed me a lot. And what was frustrating is he always knows where you are, so at one point he basically camped me outside of a safe zone, which just led to what felt like an infinite death loop. However, what disappointed me about Nemesis is he's not really a true stalker enemy like Mr. X was. All the moments Nemesis shows up are scripted, and he practically teleports around the map to chase you, which kind of took out a lot of the tension. What made Mr. X so terrifying for me in the RE2 remake was that he was moving around searching for you in real time, and a lot of my encounters with him were organic and unscripted. That made it 10 times scarier. I think Nemesis would have been even better if they had him roam around the map searching for you. That combined with his deadly attacks and ability to sprint would have made an incredibly intense and horrifying experience. Instead, every time he shows up, he always knows where you are, and you have no chance to really avoid or sneak past him. I'm not exactly sure what the reasoning was behind this choice, but I think Tyrant's AI combined with the abilities of Nemesis and his design would have been the perfect blend for a stalker enemy. That's not to say I didn't like Nemesis though, he was still easily one of my favorite parts of the game, and he got me good a couple times. As for the protagonist Jill Valentine, I thought she was pretty cool. She's a badass character and she must be made of steel because she takes a ridiculous amount of damage in this game. I just don't feel like she had much personality in this game though. I don't know, maybe because it was too short or they made her a bit more stoic in the remake, but I don't feel like I was connected with her character as much as, say, Leon or Claire, or even Carlos for that matter. I know Jill is one of the main characters from the first game and a fan favorite. I probably should have played the first game before this, that's my bad. But I just don't really feel like there was a whole lot to Jill in this game in particular. I thought Carlos's character was definitely interesting though. I really enjoyed the sections where you got to play as him and use his differing arsenal. It was a good contrast from Jill's loadout, and overall his whole journey and fun banter with Jill was pretty entertaining. I also noticed immediately that he has the same voice as Chris Redfield in Resident Evil Village, which is a bit of a weird choice on Capcom's part, but it's not a huge deal. Like I said though, the best part of the game for me was the gameplay. The RE engine just feels and looks fantastic. The weapons feel great. Again, there's not quite as many as the 2 remake, but they were fun to use nonetheless. Probably the most notable addition was the dodge mechanic, which I really liked. I always felt in the RE2 remake some sort of dodge mechanic would have been useful instead of just trying to run away and pray you don't get hit. It adds a little more skill to the combat, which I appreciated. You also get this cool John Wick style slow-mo when you get a perfect dodge. I mean, the dodge saved me countless times throughout the game, and escaping Nemesis would have been next to impossible for me without it. There's a decent amount of enemy variety, a lot of which were tough to deal with on hardcore, and it forces you to use your ammo and resources in a smart and sparing way. It's something I love with Resident Evil games. It always forces you to actively use your brain, keeping management of your inventory, determining whether it's worth using precious resources to deal with an enemy, and keeping mental notes of where to backtrack and find extra loot to scavenge. That formula Resident Evil has nailed, and it's so satisfying. And obviously a big part of every Resident Evil game are the puzzles. However, there weren't many puzzles in this game, and the ones that were there felt extremely easy. It's not a huge complaint, but it's definitely something I noticed, again, especially when compared to the 2 remake. The atmosphere is incredible though, that's no surprise. Everything on this engine just looks amazing, and right from the start, it does a good job of immersing you back into Raccoon City. There's some good variety with the levels considering the game's length, although I've heard they cut out entire sections from the original game, which is unfortunate. But since this game does take place in Raccoon City during the outbreak like RE2, there's quite a few references and connections to 2, which I found pretty cool. Getting to go through the RPD again was one of my favorite parts of the game, even if most of it is blocked off. Of course, if I've said it once, I've said it 1,000 times, the graphics look great, and the performance on PC is so impressive. I don't understand how games that look this good are also this well optimized, but they are. I really loved the cinematography in this game too, especially with those opening cutscenes in the beginning being chased by Nemesis. The way the camera moves and how the game seamlessly flows from cutscene to gameplay. I love when games have such good transitions that it's almost hard to tell you're back in control. On top of that, all the character designs look really good. I mean, Resident Evil just does not miss when it comes to visuals. And overall, while I can't say this is my favorite Resident Evil game of the ones I've played, I still had a really good time with it. Yes, it's short, and it did kind of feel like a downgrade in some areas when compared to the near perfect RE2 remake, but overall, it's still a blast to play. I definitely recommend it on a sale. In fact, it's like $10 on Steam right now, so if you've been thinking about checking it out for yourself, no time like the present, especially with the Resident Evil 4 remake a couple days out from release. I cannot wait for that game, especially since I did actually play the original for that one, but let me know if you'd like to see a video on the 4 remake and what your thoughts are on the 3 remake down in the comments. As always, I appreciate the support, and if you enjoyed the video, I'd appreciate it if you left a like and considered subscribing to the channel if you're new, and other than that, thanks for watching everybody, and have a great rest of your day.